Hello and good morning, Anderson High School. I'm Carlos.
And I'm Carlos.
And this is Carlos and Carlos in the Morning. Today we're going to be talking everywhere from NCAA, March Madness, to NBA, to NFL. Starting off, I'm going to be saying who I think has the biggest upside and downside in this March Madness tournament, starting with Miami. They're a very explosive team. They're led by their center, Kenny Kaji, who's a big presence in the paint. Carlos, what do you think is the biggest strength about this team?
That right there in their point guard. I mean, if Kenny's not having a big game, I feel like Miami isn't going to be able to get far or deep into the tournament. So if he's having a big game, they're going to do very good and expect him to do very good. Because the last game that I watched him play, he was in foul trouble and they weren't able to go down low and be as effective as they normally are.
And just play their usual game plan. I completely agree with you. I think that's like kind of the staple of this offense, but also they're a very quick team, so they have lots of things working for them. And they've been one of the teams that's been relatively consistent throughout the year, which is always good to see. Next, the team with the biggest downside, Akron, had their starting point guard Alex Abreu arrested with drug charges, so he's going to be out for the tournament. How does this affect them?
I think it affects them greatly. You know, a point guard is kind of like the quarterback for basketball. They need their starting point guard. Without that, it's like throwing someone in there that hasn't played as that much. And who are they playing? They're playing VCU. You know, VCU's not like a Louisville, but they're a team that always does great in the tournament. So, you know, Akron's they really
need that one distributor to get it to their shooters, the perimeter shooters, and get it to their post presence down low. And without that, I see them losing to VCU in the first round.
First round, they're done. Yeah.
Moving on
to the NBA.
Still talking on the other side of the bracket.
Oh, you want to talk? Okay.
Oregon and UCLA. Oregon beat UCLA twice. It looked like they're going to win the Pac-12 championship. What happened there? What do you think about seeding and where they could each go in the
I think that was the only big mistake that I can see during Selection Sunday. Oregon, you're right, beat them twice, UCLA twice in the two times that they met. And they also won the Pac-12 tournament. So for them to be a 12 seed right now, playing against Oklahoma State, I think they kind of got robbed. UCLA is playing Minnesota. Minnesota's a very good team.
Very good at rebounding.
Yeah, but I do truly feel like Oregon should have been at least higher or equal to UCLA at this point. Because UCLA had a really good year. But Oregon just beat them twice and won the Pac-12. So I really do not see how UCLA has a 6-spot above seeding than them.
I think the thing that really hurt Oregon is they had a key injury in the middle of their season, and that's like once he went out. I'm blanking on his name right now, but once he went out,
no,
they couldn't distribute and they couldn't score, and the team was really revolving around him. But now I could see Oregon making a deep push for the playoffs.
Yeah, so can I.
Going into the NBA, we're going to be talking about the Bulls today. They had a overtime loss that's a little bit shrouded in controversy yesterday against the Denver Nuggets, where Carlos Boozer put back in a shot, and that
I think it was Joakim Noah actually.
Joakim Noah, Joakim Noah put in a shot that the refs said could have gone in, so they called goaltending. But just the play before, the Denver Nuggets had also scored on a similar play. What do you think about this?
You know, the Bulls right now, there's been a lot of speculation over if Tom Thibodeau should be playing the players when he's playing them because there's tired or injuries. You know, injuries is a big thing for them. But in this specific game, I really do believe that it was a right call for goaltending, offensive goaltending, but it was just the way they did it. They did it during a timeout. They didn't make the call on the court, and I think that's why there's big argument over the ending of this game. But you know, in the end, I truly think that the Bulls did get robbed this game. They should have won that game, and with that loss, it dropped them down to 6th place. And I think if the Bulls want to make a big push in the playoffs, they're going to need that 5 or 4 seed.
I agree. I mean, I have to give Tom Thibodeau something. He's been playing, with Derrick Rose injured, with Joakim Noah going in and out. He's played a very small, a team that's without its stars very well, masterfully, and he's been getting everyone the ball. He's been getting the ball distributed, so I think that's very good in his part. But in my personal opinion, I think both of the calls, or both of the shots should have been goaltending, and in that case, none of the points would have counted, and Denver still
wins by 1.
So it is shrouded in controversy, but you know, that's the NBA, and that's one game out of 82 games.
Yeah, so you know, you can't really bank their season off that one loss.
They're still a playoff prime team.
Yeah,
they still have good chances.
It's going to be close though. They could not make it, but you know, they need.
It depends on. When do you think Derrick Rose is going to be coming back?
I don't think he's going to be coming back
at all.
But you know, maybe I have this feeling also in my stomach that says that he'll come back in playoffs, But I feel like he needs to come back before that. So he needs to get a rhythm going before in the playoffs.
It's like what we saw with Amari Stoudemire this year. He was injured in the beginning, and then he came and he was coming off the bench, but they didn't really know how to incorporate him because that Knicks team had learned to play without him.
Yeah.
And even though Derrick Rose is their star, I think it's always tough to adjust, especially come playoff time when you've been winning games and you got to the playoffs a certain way. It's tough to incorporate even a player as good as Derrick Rose.
Yeah.
Moving into the NFL, free agency, we're deep into free agency. It's almost over, actually. Who do you think is the biggest winner in free agency?
The biggest winner right now for me, I'm going to have to say the Seattle Seahawks.
Seattle Seahawks.
Not just because they've
made some great moves.
They have. And Percy Harvin, grabbing him is just adding weapons around Russell Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they already had Sidney Rice. They already had an amazing running back in Marshawn Lynch. Adding Percy Harvin, they're kind of like the best. They're just going to be an offensive team. And the thing that's amazing about them is they're not just offensively good, defensively as well. They brought in guys like Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett, and they're going to be a team to reckon with this year.
The thing I see with all those three offensive stars, Percy Harvin, Russell Wilson, and Marshawn Lynch, is they're all individual playmakers. Each of them, when they have the ball, they make things happen. Russell Wilson with his feet, Marshawn Lynch, amazing in and out of blocks, and even Percy Harvin, in Minnesota, they gave him the ball out of the outfield a couple of times, and he's a great downfield receiver. Mm-hmm. So I feel like these moves really put them over the top against San Francisco.
Punt returning too.
Exactly.
Well, see, that's what's funny is San Francisco is trying to do the same things. They're kind of like, it's funny because they're matching each other's moves in free agency. Mm-hmm. You look at Anquan Bolden and Percy Harvin, they're matching. So it's going to be that division is going to be interesting.
It's a tough division. Yeah. Moving on, we're going to be talking about who the biggest loser in free agency is, and right now, as Washington Redskins have shown us, winning free agency doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good next season. Miami's been making a lot of moves. They got Mike Wallace, who's an incredible down the field receiver, and they've been making a lot of other moves. But just because they have that, doesn't mean they're necessarily going to be that much improved in the division next year. Ryan Tannehill did have his struggles. He had fumble problems. He had interception problems, especially deep down the field last year. So
what's interesting with that is he's saying that he didn't have enough weapons around him. Mm-hmm. So I think he's one of the players next year that's going to have a lot of pressure. Now that they brought in a guy that he says is like the weapon, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him to succeed next year.
Absolutely, especially in a tough environment in Miami where they were used to winning 10-15 years ago, but now they've had a dry spell. I think it was a mistake for the coach to play Reggie Bush so little this season. I think he was an instrumental part of that offense, and he was really an every down back. And now that he's going to Detroit, Miami has a lot of pressure to perform, and they have a lot of work to do this offseason.
I would say my biggest loser right now, I would say it's the Baltimore Ravens. Mm-hmm. They haven't. They came off that Super Bowl win, but they haven't brought in as much as they've lost.
Yeah.
And at the point right now, if they lose Ed Reed, that defense is going to have the biggest struggle that they will ever have in the past 5 years. Ray Lewis is gone, Kruger's gone, Corey Williams is gone, Ed Reed. They're gonna need a lot of help, and they're not bringing them in.
Yeah, and I mean the biggest problem with me for them was giving Anquan Bolden to the San Francisco 49ers for a 6th round pick. That's like saying the person who basically carried you through the postseason is worth as much as a wide receiver from Montana State who's coming in the first year that you could get in the 6th round league. It was absolutely ridiculous that the coaching changes.
San Francisco got an amazing deal.
Jim Harbaugh, I really don't see what he's trying to do here. I feel like he was trying to give Joe Flacco the big contract, but now there's going to be a lot of criticism. Do you think there's going to be criticism in Baltimore next year?
If they don't continue their winning ways?
Yeah.
I do. I really do.
Because I feel like, you look at a guy like Tom Brady who's made his money throughout the years, and now he just takes the salary cap drop so he can sign other players. Do you think Joe Flacco should have done something like that or not?
No, I mean, he's going to do what any other quarterback would want to do. They're going to want that big paycheck. But I do feel like you're right, that contract affected the Ravens majorly because they did not have enough money to keep the players that were also performing just as well as Joe Flacco was during that offseason.
I completely agree. Well, that's going to be all. We're going to be signing off from Carlos and Carlos in the morning now. We'll see you next time.
See ya.